How many times have you felt that your sensitivity was both a gift and a curse? You sense what others feel before they even speak. You carry pain that isn't yours, and you often believe you were born to save the world. But deep down, you're exhausted, empty, and lost within yourself. And what if I told you that this very sensitivity that imprisons you today could actually become the key to your freedom? This video is for those who are tired of living to please, who have felt the weight of being called selfish just for daring to say no, and who sense that the time has come to reconnect with their own soul. What you're about to hear is not shallow motivation, but a deep dive into what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, and sovereign. And maybe, at the end of this journey, you'll discover that your pain was never the end, but the beginning. There is a peculiar kind of loneliness that only empaths understand. It's the loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling like no one truly sees your truth. It's the emptiness of erasing yourself to keep the peace, of smiling while something inside you screams for freedom. Carl Jung said individuation is the task of an entire lifetime, to become who we truly are. But for the empath, this task is even more challenging, because it requires breaking away from the old identity of healer, of being too good, of defining oneself only by what is given to others. Maybe you are at this point now, tired, drained, but also on the edge of awakening, because only those who reach their limit have the chance to be reborn. And it is in this moment of extreme exhaustion that the first revelation emerges. Empathy, which seemed like an innate gift, was often born as a survival strategy. The empath believes they were born with a heart bigger than the world. But many times, that sensitivity was not a blessing. It was survival. The empathic child learned very early to read every gesture, every tone of voice, every heavy silence in the air. Not because they were enlightened, but because they needed protection. Anticipating their parents' moods, noticing conflicts before they exploded, pleasing to avoid rejection. This ability, so often celebrated, is frequently the mark of a childhood lived on alert. In adulthood, this ability continues. But now, instead of protecting, it imprisons. The empath feels the environment more than themselves, offers everyone a strength they don't have, and by the end of the day carries a fatigue they cannot explain. Jung said the persona, the social mask, is necessary but dangerous. When we live only through it, we forget who we are behind the smile that pleases, behind the kindness that never refuses. The empath must recognize their sensitivity is real, but it only becomes a true gift when it is not used to hide the fear of rejection. And once that mask of survival is removed, something deeper comes to the surface, the shadow that has always been hidden. When awakening, the empath finds themselves face to face with what they fear most, their own shadow. There lie the repressed anger, the built-up resentment, the urge to scream enough that they never dared to voice. For years, these feelings were pushed down, treated as enemies of kindness. But Jung reminds us, what we reject doesn't disappear. It only hides in the caves of the psyche. And sooner or later, that shadow demands to be seen. That moment is terrifying, because the empath feels they are breaking the image of being the good angel. But it is also liberating, because inside the anger there is a vital energy that restores strength. Inside the sadness there is a truth that reconnects them to authenticity. Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." The empath who accepts their shadow discovers that light does not come from denial, but from integration. It's not about eliminating anger, but listening to what it says. It's not about silencing pain, but allowing it to reveal where healing lies. And it is precisely from this encounter with the shadow that a silent and transformative process begins. The awakening journey, which unfolds like waves reshaping life entirely. The awakening of an empath does not happen overnight, but through movements that transform their whole existence. At first, the energy shifts. The body, once exhausted, begins to recover vitality when it no longer gives compulsively. The soul, once dimmed, slowly reignites. With this new strength, the social mask begins to fall. The empath, who always smiled to be accepted, now starts showing genuine expressions. There is a strange sensation in looking in the mirror and seeing someone new, someone real. From this flow, boundaries are born. The word no, which once felt like a sin, now becomes sacred. And in saying no, the empath discovers something deeper still. Their true identity, buried under years of self-erasure, begins to bloom again. The need to save everyone dissolves. There is no longer a burden to carry the world on their shoulders. The wounded healer awakens, learning that one cannot heal while wounding themselves. And so, sovereignty over their own energy is born. The empath learns to choose where to place their light, instead of letting it be drained. At this point, relationships begin to change. They are no longer made of dependency, but of choice, authenticity, and truth. It is a silent rebirth, each stage a breath that restores the soul to itself. And when this journey matures, the empath discovers their true destination, psychological sovereignty. The pinnacle of the path is the conquest of this sovereignty. Jung said that the individual who reaches this point becomes dangerously sovereign, because they can no longer be manipulated. The sovereign empath remains sensitive. They still feel deeply, but now they do not drown in the feelings of others. They help, but do not sacrifice themselves. They love, but do not erase themselves. It is like a tree that continues to offer its shade generously, but never ceases to be firmly rooted. Those who come close feel its presence, but can no longer pull its roots out. This is the rarest freedom, not to stop being who you are, but finally to choose when, how, and to whom you give yourself. But every freedom has a price. And when the empath awakens to this new way of living, they also discover the criticisms and consequences of the journey. No deep transformation goes unnoticed. When the empath begins to rise, those who fed on their submission become uncomfortable. Friends may drift away. Family may accuse them of being cold. Partners may say they've changed for the worse. And it's true, they have changed. But they changed to survive, to become whole. The price is learning to withstand judgmental looks, labels of selfishness, and painful losses. Yet there is a silent maturity in accepting being misunderstood, because deep down, only those who dare to disappoint others can finally stop disappointing themselves. Still, this courage does not come without pain. On the contrary, it exposes the deepest wounds of the empathic soul, wounds that must be seen and soothed. Being an empath means carrying invisible pains, the exhaustion of living for others, the fear of saying no and being abandoned, the anguish of believing you'll never be enough, the loneliness of feeling used but unseen. Many times, this pain reaches a breaking point, that moment when body and soul can no longer bear it. These pains, as intense as they may be, are not signs of failure. They are signs of birth. Like a seed, before it blossoms, it must first be buried in darkness. And how can this process be eased? Through simple yet profound practices. Inner silence, which restores clarity. Contemplation, which reminds us that everything passes. Conscious breathing, which anchors the heart. Writing, which gives voice to what has never been spoken. Each gesture becomes a thread of light guiding the soul through the crossing. Choose a moment in your day, perhaps when you wake up, or at the end of the week, to breathe deeply. Imagine, in that moment, that your energy, once scattered among everyone, returns to you. With every inhale, you gather your strength. With every exhale, you release only what is truly yours. Genuine compassion, not sacrifice. And in that fertile silence, ask yourself, what if the pain tearing me apart today is actually the portal to the authentic life I've always sought? If something within you has awakened while listening to these words, allow yourself to continue. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to walk with us on this fertile path of silence, discoveries, and reconnection. Share your experience in the comments. Your story may also be a seed of healing for other hearts. And to keep expanding this presence, we suggest the video linked here. May it be a gentle breeze in your journey. Peace and light.